Okay, this is a game in the T-54 prototype on Sacred Valley Encounter. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about in this particular match is repositioning when your side or the area that you're in is collapsing, and also moving to save teammates and sort of keeping your gun active. I always believe that the west spawn on this encounter map has an advantage of controlling this north area, particularly up in here. So I think that's usually the easiest place to play through. The cap is pretty easily guardable. But as in all games, whenever we talk about this type of stuff during the stream, you want to look and see what your team is doing 30 to 60 seconds into the match, see where they're going, see whether they're going to be in position to help you, or whether you need to change the position that you're in to become more effective. And so that's a pretty good rule of thumb that I'm trying to hammer in on everybody. So I always like going up here, and then you can basically peer around on either side of this house. I'm going around the north side. You can also go and look around the south side as well. There's a lot of cover here, a lot of destructible cover, a lot of buildings and things like that. But it does allow you to spot a lot of their tanks, both the ones headed north through that 6th line, and also guys that are still out in that spawn area. And so there's a 110 that's coming around this outside over here. So they have a lot here, and then so again, we want to look and see what you sent over here. We don't really have a whole lot. We've got a couple of 7s here. The T-28 prototype is in the back, but it looks like they sent a good amount, particularly up through this middle CD line here. So that's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Most of our team, or a little bit more than half of our team, went to the south, which is usually not super effective, but at least we sort of don't really have to concern ourselves too much with control of the middle. Unable to block the SU-100Y there. But I am very good at not shooting this 110. The 100Y is really tall, so it's unlikely I would have been able to save him anyways. And then so now this is a sort of a collapsing pocket. See how these guys are backing off on this side and they're pushing up through here. So I don't really have a whole lot here. I want to see how aggressive they are on this C line, but see how they're pushing forward right here. That means it's going to make my position increasingly bad. I'm using this dead 100Y to cover my back, but I'm not in a very good position here. So whenever you're in a position that's poor, I mean, ideally you can read it a little bit earlier. You want to get out of that position, right? And this is particularly easy to do from this area because there's this ridge here in the middle, and if I just drive down here, I can get past the 110, right? And then these guys, if they want to follow me, they have to follow me all the way over this ridge. They can't just shoot me from back there. So that's what we're looking to do, and we can use the rocks over here as well for coverage. So see how this 15A back there is pushing this way in order to get shots on me, but I can use this rock here to block my exit, to cover my exit basically. And the T-54 prototype, particularly when you're top tier, you want to keep everybody in front of you as you can. You don't want people to be on your sides or your back, so if you can get away from doing that, from that type of situation, you certainly want to. And so all we'll do here is, right, simply we just drove out. We had to take some damage there, but we basically have everybody in front of us again. It's possible that they can come back through the middle behind us, but we still have people behind us. It looks like we're going to lose that north eventually. Nothing has really happened on the south, and that's to our advantage. So we'll just take what we can get right here. And so there's a jumbo behind me. And as we talk about many times in the stream, if bullied, then bully. So he's in a position where he has no chance against me. So it's just a matter of getting to his position and then just bullying him. And then all I have to do is keep my armor faced towards him and be aware of where artillery may or may not be. And their team still hasn't really done a whole lot on the south, which is to our advantage. They have their T-54, and he's ISO'd on this north side now, so I want to try to push up there and clear him out first. You always want to clear out those ISO pockets as quickly as you can, and then you can worry about the rest, especially when their team is being passive on that side. You don't have to worry about them pressuring you through the other side. You know, go ahead and take care of these ISOs, and then you can take this whole, and the rest of this team can then go and deal with the other side. Like, see where our Karen is pushing through right now? That Karen would be better off waiting until we are done with the T-34, and then moving accordingly. But he was able to spot the Lorraine artillery, which is good for us. So he is putting some pressure on that artillery, which again makes this position where the T-69 is significantly safer. So as long as the artillery is under duress, you don't really have to worry too much about it, but you want to keep an eye on what's going on down there. But I know that he has to be moving right now. Our KV-85 is coming through the back on this T-34, so I don't really need to pressure the T-34 that much. He would have to high roll me in order to kill me. So I don't need to press this at the moment because their artillery is still under duress, and I know that we have somebody coming on the flank. Our KV-85 does get snapped there, unfortunately. He didn't need to quite drive out there in order to get it done, but he did. Unfortunately, our Karen lost to the artillery, which is unfortunate. And then these guys are coming along this side. You really want to play through this middle. We haven't traded really well on the base, but usually people who go south aren't very super awesome. But luckily, they had a couple of their top tiers play really passively, specifically this M4A1, and they're super pushing. They're, it's 6 minutes into the game, they still have full health, and just now when they've finally not lost that north side, now these guys are moving forward, and you generally don't want to wait quite that long to be effective. You always want to try to keep your gun active as much as possible, particularly if you're in a high tier tank. There's really no excuse for you to not have some level of activity. And so we're losing these guys on this east side because they're pushing around through that open area, which is not super great, but I want to be able to try to keep as many of these guys alive as possible, particularly since we're starting to run out of ammo now. And so this Panther is down here, which is not really that big of a deal, but our E-25 is engaging over here, and the E-25 has less health than their E-25, so that's something that we want to keep an eye on. And if we can keep that guy alive, then we certainly will. But we'll try to get our free damage here on this guy. And then I want to try to keep this E-25 alive as soon as I can get over there. Ideally, he would have been a little bit further back because he didn't really need to engage that. Because he needs to be careful there because that other E-25 has more health and can DPM him down. But we're able to take him out, which is good. And then it'll be really easy to take out this 100Y, particularly these large tank destroyers. Non-turreted tank destroyers are pretty easy to kill because you can't play that corner very effectively. And then I know that Panther was down in that towards the cap, and he may or may not be coming towards our back, so I wanted to come out here. Luckily, he's not able to kill the E-25. I want to try to get in front of the E-25 as much as possible so that he doesn't die. And then this is sort of the bad part of this tank, and this terrain right here. It doesn't really have very good depression, so like the front of my tank keeps going up, and I don't have the depression to shoot him very well until I get on more flat ground. It also sort of exposes a little bit more of a bad part of the armor. And then now we're down to not that much, but at least it's just that super Pershing that's left. And he's pushing over towards the artillery. And luckily the artillery gets a shot, and we're down to 1 HE, which is not going to be enough to kill this guy unless we actually shoot him through the engine deck. So it's not really worthwhile for me to shoot over here. So we've actually gotten to the point in the game where we need to put on some cap pressure, need to basically let the E-25 kill this guy, or at least be in a position where the Super Pershing has to play Ring Around the Rosie with us, which can actually be done, particularly on this cap, because there's a big rock in the middle of the cap. And so it actually makes it pretty easy to do 1-2s, even with a non-turreted tank destroyer. The E-25 is luckily pretty mobile. And so we'll just basically save the HE so that if we need to, we'll try to get around to the back of the Super Pershing to get a shot, because that's the only thing that we can possibly do with that. But so what you want to do in this situation is put on some cap pressure, and this cap is pretty interesting, particularly with a short tank like the E-25, because you could fit the E-25 in right there, and then he would have to push up over here in order to come around this rock, and then you could basically just 1-2 him. You know, one person goes one way, the other person goes the other way, and whichever side he's looking at, the other guy will get free shots. And luckily this Super Pershing is not the bestest of players. But if the E-25 was down here, we would be out spotting. Since the E-25 is up in that area between us and the Super Pershing, we'll let him do the spotting. And I don't think this Super Pershing really knows what he's doing. He's just driving around the map a little bit. And then eventually he'll wander over this way. Eventually. Eventually. Someday. There we go. And so he finally figured out what that siren was, so he starts headed down here, which is fine. And so one of the things that we want to do is probably let him get a little bit closer and then present ourselves so that the E-25 gets better shots. But as he's driving down here, our E-25 drives over and is able to get him before he actually notices, which is in some part luck, but I'll take it. And again, just based upon the timing, this is something that we could have capped out as well. And you always want to sort of look at the timer in terms of putting on cap pressure, because cap pressure is useful, but there's a time and a place for it, and you have to understand whether you're going to be married to the cap or not. But anyway, so in this game, there's a couple of things that we really want to talk about. One was, we moved over into this forward position, spotted a bunch of their tanks coming in, looked back at our support. We really didn't have much support helping us here, particularly since a lot of them were pretty far back, and then our B line basically backed off of there. And so we had to exit out of here, and that's one of the things that we try to stress in the streams, that you want to take a forward position, but you also want to have an exit plan, be able to have a route that you can take to get away, and particularly in a tank with armor, try to keep your enemies in front of you. Sometimes that means driving past them and turning around, and so it's important to keep yourself alive in that sense, but it's also important to keep your gun active. Like we were involved in pretty much every major engagement in this entire fight, and so that allowed us to basically have the greatest influence possible on this game, as compared to their M4A1 or their Super Pershing, who basically camped out, I presume, somewhere in the southeast for most of the game before pushing forward. And if those guys exerted themselves a little bit earlier, then that could have just been a crushing loss for our team. But the fact that they were inactive for so long, makes my activity that much more relevant. And so if we look at the stats, pretty much as expected, neither team performed spectacularly well. We wasted a lot of shots. We almost ran out of ammo, and some of that was a little bit careless in terms of I don't mind shooting down buildings in order to get better shots. So particularly on that sea line, we were shooting a lot of buildings and fences and things like that. But particularly, once you get about halfway through the game or halfway through your ammo, however you want to look at it, you want to start thinking about ammo management in this particular case. But otherwise, one of the reasons why we were able to get so many shots or get a reasonable amount of damage is because we were active. We were always someplace where the action was, and that's important, particularly when you're in a top tier tank. And one of the things that we always talk about is this sort of activity rate. Make sure that you're involved somehow. You don't always have to be frontline, right? But you always want to be shooting something or just about to shoot something. You don't want to be waiting for your team to die before you begin trying to exert your influence on the map. So anyways, I hope that was helpful in terms of repositioning and keeping yourself active. And thanks for watching.